Welcome, everybody, to the Steelers Roundtable here on Trib Live Radio. Josh Taylor in studio with Chris Adamski. We'll be joined shortly by Ralph Polk. Playing a little backup duty today as everybody's traveling to New Orleans for the Steelers' third preseason game. So, got to jump in under center for Mark Cabali and Ralph. But all the same, glad to be here with Buzz in studio. Want to talk about some things with this third preseason game, Buzz. Usually we see this third game as the dress rehearsal game is what they like to call it. It's when we usually see the most time for the starters during the preseason, and it looks like this might be the one time during the preseason where we might see a glimpse of if we actually get the best look of what this offense could look like, or maybe could look like at its best right now.
And not only that, they did the whole week. The practice schedule was set up to mimic a regular season week. You even had players, I don't know if it was instinctively or mistakenly or actually referring to yesterday as Friday, the Wednesday as Friday, because 2 days leading up to a game day, the way they went through their workouts, the way they went through their recovery, that type of thing. They actually installed something of a game plan. I'm sure not an entire game plan like you would for a regular season game, but they're actually, studying Saints film and things like that, which you wouldn't do, certainly for week one of the preseason with any depth whatsoever. So they're trying as best they can to simulate, to go through everything as a regular season week, and you'll see it with the personnel that's on the field. Now, I'm sure if there's guys that are sort of on the fence, that maybe if it's a playoff game, you throw them out there. You're not going to take any chances during the preseason. But other than that, anybody who's available, as Mike Tomlin said about all healthy men, and then he got asked by a bunch of guys. He said, he just repeated, all healthy men will play. So if you're healthy, you'll play.
Now, this comes after Ben Roethlisberger pretty much openly lobbied for the chance to play. He wants to take some snaps. He even mentioned that he wants to take some hits. That's something I'm sure Mike Tomlin does not want to hear, is his starting quarterback saying he wants to take hits in preseason going into a season like this, knowing the issues that this team already has across the board.
Yeah, and that's what ironically, the one spot really on the offense that's the only open starting spot is left tackle. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I guess you could really start nitpicking, saying the third receiver spot is kind of up for grabs still. But when left tackle, obviously a pretty important spot when you're talking about the healthier quarterback. And the early results through two preseason games, we're dealing with, about 3/4 total of time between Ryan Harris and Alejandro Villanueva haven't been, they've been less than stellar, I guess, so far. So that's something. The good news is that the Saints really don't have much of a defense or a pass rush to speak of overall. So maybe you hang your head on that. But that's it goes without saying, that's the one thing that could unravel and undo the entire Steelers offense this season would be the quarterback getting hurt for an extended period of time.
And the old adage is, if you have two starting quarterbacks, you don't have any. Well, if it seems like for the Steelers, you have two starting left tackles, you don't seem to have one.
That's an excellent way of putting it.
Here's another thing to look at. For the third preseason game, they're not going to have their first-round draft pick playing. Artie Burns actually saying that he's not going to play, but we're hearing some conflicting reports that he will play, some that he won't, but he says that he won't play, and that's got to be a little bit unnerving.
Yeah, it's not one of those things where, I have a source. I have a source on the record, and the source is Artie Burns, and he said,
there you go.
I said, what do you think? You going to play? No, I'm not playing. It wasn't even any sort of, I don't know. Nope. Said he's not playing. Now, he's a 21-year-old first-round pick, not used to the way things work. In theory, maybe he's being told something different, but he said he's not going to play. He said he'll definitely be ready to play next week, and he'll definitely be ready to play September 12th for the regular season opener. Now, there's a point where, assuming he doesn't play against the Saints, and even if he does play in that fourth preseason game, which is the third game is the dress rehearsal, the fourth game is really a glorified, like the Detroit Lions practice there was at Latrobe a couple weeks ago. And it wasn't as if, I think that best case, and this isn't even really a put down, when you're talking about Artie Burns when he was drafted, I don't want to say project's a strong word, I don't want to put it that far, but he was not the most, of all the draftable cornerbacks, the most ready to play right away. It was maybe the highest ceiling, but maybe you had to wait a little bit to get to that point. So now you take away a big portion of his practice time, certainly all 3/4 at least of the game rep time, and now you're thinking you put him in a regular season game. So, we beat to death the secondary, and it's how thin it is right now. And your first round pick, I don't know at this point. week one especially, maybe before the middle of the season, whatever, and he gets more reps and he gets more practice time, gets more game reps, I guess, to a point, maybe ease him in lightly. But it seems to me that at FedEx Field on September 12th, I don't know how much Artie Burns is going to be a big contributor to the efforts of the team.
Now, as far as the cornerback position goes, we also heard that Keenan Lewis, former Steelers cornerback, visits the facility, but had a physical, but there's some hip issues there. So he left to meet with the team, but he didn't leave with a contract. So what to make of that?
Yeah, to be totally honest, when I saw him in the locker room, that was a signal to me that, it's on. Like, he's here, and the people come to visit. They obviously, they bring in free agents not all the time, but they do it, throughout the offseason, different points of the year, and you bring him in, you do the physical, do all the tests, and take him out in the field and do, see how he's moving, things like that. And, maybe now, obviously, he has a history with the team. He has history with the players and everything, but I still find it a little bit odd that you bring somebody in your locker room with the players. If he was going, in theory, tomorrow he could be a Raven or whatever, and, to have him amongst your team score straight. So I thought that meant, but then the more you talk to people, the more you kind of snuck around yesterday at the facility, find out that it wasn't imminent for sure, and it might be later. And like I think I wrote or I tweeted or both. One of his former teammates said, no, he told me he's not going to be ready for 6 weeks. So why sign him now if he's not going to be ready for 6 weeks? I mean, maybe you see how you go. Look at Artie Burns if he progresses. See how things go with Sean Davis in the slot. See, if you're hurting by week 3 or 4 of the regular season, maybe you bring him in at that point as kind of your savior at that point.
Well, we will definitely have to keep an eye on this because there will be more progressions as far as who's playing quarterback and who's at this position, not only in the starting side but also along the depth chart as well. And we'll keep you updated here on Trib Live Radio.